Today we're going to talk about fentanyl. I make a lot of videos on here that are stories that are entertaining of stuff that I went through, stuff that happened, but a lot of stuff about what I want to do is about addiction, bringing awareness to it, and thinking about it from a different perspective. It's treated the wrong way, it's thought of the wrong way, and if you reframed it and you handle certain things differently, it could really make a lot of difference. And if this wasn't just such a big taboo that we swept under the rug, that we just didn't talk about because it was uncomfortable, it could stop a lot of stuff. Now, when I was using drugs, fentanyl, the only fentanyl we would see was the type that people were prescribed. Yes, people are prescribed fentanyl. It comes on a patch. It's supposed to be released over a 3-day period that you put on you. Now, one is just a flat patch, just like a piece of tape, a sticker that got stuck on you. The other had jelly in the middle of it, and your body, the heat, it would suck it in. Now, addicts would chew up that patch or cut it up, suck the jelly out of it to get high all at once. And that's when you would hear oftentimes of people dying from fentanyls, because addicts would use they started only I'm not sure, I think 12.5 micrograms, but they go up to 100 micrograms. Now, 100 micrograms is the highest dose, the dose that has killed a lot of people, of the fentanyl patch. And do you know how much that is? That is 1 milligram, okay? 1 tablespoon of salt has 2,300 milligrams. So if 1 milligram of fentanyl can kill you, a spoon full of salt, a spoonful of fentanyl that's the same size, same weight, is going to be the same size, same weight as a spoonful of salt. It's 2,300 milligrams. 2,300 people that could die from 1 spoonful, okay? Now, heroin, roughly, for somebody who has no tolerance, it's about 50 milligrams that it takes to kill someone if they have no tolerance. It varies by body weight and other things like that, but whenever I was involved in it, there were certain times that I was a down and out addict that had to middleman stuff, certain times that I worked my way up the ladder and I was actually dealing with quite a bit of it. At one of the times when I was dealing with quite a bit of it, I've been in the kitchen where there's 4 of us putting dope through filters and putting cut through filters. Now, this filter's so fine, a piece of hair could not fit through it. You can't see through it. And we would press all the heroin through the filter. Then we would press all the cut through the filter. Why? Because this filter is so fine, a hair can't get through it. If you take flour and a bag of sugar and you put it in a cup and you shake it, the sugar's going to settle different from the flour, okay? But if you have everything broken down to the same consistency where it's gone through this filter, then it can be cut and mixed evenly. It won't settle different at different spots. Well, when we had it, we have cut large amounts of it before, up to a kilo of it. And now you take 1,000 grams and you put it through a filter. And then you take 1,000 grams of cut and you put it through a filter. You're putting it all through the same filter. Well, somewhere around, you got to think it's 36 ounces. That's a lot. I mean, it's a brick that's going through these filters. After so many ounces has gone through this filter and you're pushing it through, little tiny tears happen, and sometimes it'd be little pebbles of uncut heroin that would get into it. And, that's not as big of a deal because it takes significantly more. It takes 50 milligrams, a 20th of a gram, which is substantially more. Usually, I mean, it depends on the body weight tolerance and everything else and how you're using it. If they're snorting it, if it's in being injected. But each hole in this filter, if we had been using fentanyl, each granule, you know, the size, just a 1 milligram granule, just a little tiny pebble. You got to think, if a spoonful of salt weighs 2,300 milligrams, how tiny that is. If you divided a spoon of salt down to the grains, it's like a grain of salt practically. Each little tiny grain that got through there that weighed a milligram, in addition to the heroin, is going to kill someone. Now, why would they use this? The reason behind so many evils is always the same. It is money. So, heroin's more expensive, it roughly, and a lot of the prices I've looked up, like I said, fentanyl wasn't a thing back then. And heroin price, from what I've looked up from the time back when I was dealing with it to now, is a lot cheaper than it used to be. If it has the smell, people think they're buying heroin. Fentanyl and heroin are both, they provide the same high, basically, slightly different, but pretty much the same. They can take a significantly less amount of heroin. So let's say only 4.5 ounces of heroin and a little bit of fentanyl. And then they can use a ton of cut, they could use 31.5 more ounces of cut to make a kilo. So off this 4.5 ounces of heroin, they can make that into a whole kilo of what gets sold as heroin, because it has the smell of it, it has the taste of it, and it gets you just as high as anything else ever got you. But the cut stretches it more to where they're making more money. So by just selling the heroin and marking it up, people make anywhere from triple to 8 times their money. If they mix fentanyl in with it, they can make like 30 times their money that they're making in the first place. So it makes them make a whole lot more money a whole lot quicker. Now, I lived in a place called York, Pennsylvania, for a little bit. There was a bad culture among the dealers up there. What they would do there is certain dealers would intentionally put a little tiny bit, just a little tiny bit of fentanyl inside of a bag of dope they had. Now, heroin sold a lot different than other drugs. If you've ever seen a BC powder, oftentimes heroin is individually bagged in what looks like a BC powder wrapper, but it's not just openable like that. It's a little pack that unfolds, and they fold it down into a little square and tape it up. Sell it in individual packs, price per pack. If you buy 10, you get a discount. If you buy 50, you get an even bigger discount. They would put a little bit of fentanyl in there and give it to one of their addicts and let them overdose. A lot of times they just go to the hospital. Sometimes they die though. But when they overdose, guess what happened? Word got out that so-and-so's got the good dope. Now, bags of heroin have a label. People stamp a brand name on it. So they've got all kinds of crazy stuff. I've seen Obama's face stamped with, and it said Obama, the Obama bags. I've seen some that said funeral, some that said DOA. And if somebody overdosed and it was known the Obamas, everybody's going to want the Obamas. It's sick, but it's true, because everybody's like, well, that's the good stuff. That's what I want. So that's how it works in the drug culture, and this sick, warped way of thinking. That's what happens. Now, it's used for that, but what has really become popular is just like the whole pill crackdown thing, where it's impossible for people who even need to get pain pills today to get something that they need, because this whole crackdown and reformulation and everything. Well, the reformulation of everything, of the higher milligram pills, to where it can't be you can't snort it, shoot it, anything like that. Like I said, I've been out of, the heroin, opiate addiction game, everything about it, for over a decade now. But from everything that I'm reading about it, what addicts, they don't want that. They've got some couple ways of trying to get around that reformulation, but what that does is it makes the pills that aren't reformulated the gold standard. So what the gold standard is the roxycodone, known as Roxy's. It's a Percocet 30, basically, is what some people call it. It's a 30 milligram pill. It's tiny, and it can be shot up. So it used to be Oxycontin 80s, and a lot of these 80 milligram, high milligram pill that people could just instantly shoot up. Well, when all this reformulation happened, the 30 milligram roxycodone became the gold standard. So cartels saw that as a place to make a tremendous amount of profit. Now, what they do is they set up these labs in Mexico, and they're making counterfeit pills. They look identical to a regular oxycodone 30 milligram. Look just like it, but it's not roxycodone. It's just some type of buffer with a little tiny dash of fentanyl that they try to dose as best as they can. So with something that's that pure, that a spoonful could kill 1,000 people, that when police officers find in cars, if they accidentally open a bag to try to test it, if some gets in the air and they breathe it in, they've fallen out from this stuff. They've fallen out from fentanyl. With something that potent that's being made in an underground lab that's not regulated, a lot of these pills are enough to get somebody high and nothing bad to happen. But why do one when two's so much better? And if two's good, three's got to be better than that. That's an addict's mindset. And plus, with tolerance, you need more the longer you use. So if you have 10 of these pills, no, they're not going to be dosed the exact same. So usually, in a lot of the research I've done, 2 out of these 10 pills is dosed a little bit higher. Now, if you decide to do 2 each time you do it, well, if you got, it's a low chance that you're going to get the 2 that are higher dose. But when you do get the 2 pills that have just a touch more, and you do them, instead of getting the pill that's dosed averagely with 1 pill that's dosed higher, if you get 2 pills that are dosed higher and you do it, you could die. Good chance you die. So that's a big part of what's happening. It's money fueled, money motivated. And with these tiny pills, they're worth on the street, $20 to $30, up to $1 a milligram, when there's not really a milligram of any oxycodone in it. It's just a dash of fentanyl. But where it's worth so much money because people think they know what they're getting, that is where the cartel saw money in it. So these pills are cheaper to produce than anything else. So they cost as little as 3 to 4 cents a pill. And then they get over here. They're sold to a wholesaler. That wholesaler sells it to other people, and by the time it gets on the street, they're selling for 20 a piece. So something that costs just less than a nickel is getting marked up over here for $20 to $30 a piece. And that is how a lot of people are dying. Now, Xanax is another thing that you're seeing fentanyl deaths in, which is absolutely insane, because Xanax is a benzodiazepine. It produces a feeling completely different than opiates, but somehow people are using that for it. When I was using and when I was addicted, what was typical was people would start, experimenting using Lortab 5s, and then you graduated to a Lortab 10, possibly a Percocet 10. Then there was the Roxycodone 15 and 30 milligrams. Then you graduated to others like Dilaudid, Opana, and then to Oxycontin, the 40, then the 80 milligram ones. And then when that got to be too expensive, heroin was a whole lot cheaper. So people started switching over to heroin. But back before the pills were reformulated, back when they were getting overwritten, there were a tremendous amount of less deaths than there are now. So what good did it really, really do when you really break it down? When you really break it down, what I kind of, relate this to is Saddam Hussein being taken out of power. Yeah, Saddam Hussein was a very evil man. But you took him out, and look what happened in the country. It was all these, knick-knack terror groups that started springing up and became even worse than it was before. Well, that's the same situation with these pills. And that's what's happening. It's a dangerous time to be a drug addict, because any time, even for a first-time user could use for the very first time, think they're getting something that's lower milligram, but because of some idiot mixing stuff that has a third grade education who goes by Zoom Zoom or Bobo or something, that's mixing stuff up in a basement, they could die. It's not always mixed in Mexico. Sometimes fentanyl's over here for sale and people find pill presses. Just as fentanyl's being done with that, they do that with other things too, with stimulant ADD medication. But that's not as dangerous because it doesn't kill as many people. So some people, when they think they're buying Adderall, they're buying a fake pill that's just got meth in it. But meth has a much higher, it's got a higher toxicity level before it'll kill somebody. Fentanyl is too powerful. It is like, literally, when you hear about certain drugs in certain comic books that evil drug dealers or bad guys are coming up with, this is the supervillain drug come to life. This is something out of a movie. It's been in movies before, of bad guys coming up with new drugs that making a bunch of money off of, but are killing a tremendous amount of people. That's fentanyl. I mean, it's come to life. It's happening, and people are dying at a tremendous rate. I have known 43 people personally, people that I know their full name, that I have spent significant time with, that have died. Okay, a few of them murdered, drug-related deaths. Many of them overdosed. Most of them, the overwhelming majority of them, died under the age of 30. Kids are dying. The whole story about how this thing all came about, I'll get into that later. There's a whole story. I can literally break down for you the exact breakdown of how Roanoke County turned into this big addicted, pit of just, everybody dying, can be traced back mainly to my grade and a couple kids that were a couple grades ahead of us that were popular, people looked up to, and they got those kids addicted. But so then those kids would have to buy from them, and they weren't dealing, they were middlemen, but they had 10 people who were addicted that had the middleman through them. Well, that supplied their habit. And they didn't just tell them, hey, try snort this. They said, oh, shooting it's so much better. They got them right on the needle. So you had people right on the needle off the jump here in Roanoke County. Now, each of those 10 kids, they had friends they introduced it to, so then they could middleman it to make them an extra bag, extra buck. And that's how it broke down. That's what happened up in here. But, it's not a good time to be an addict. So many people I know, people don't get out of it. People fall back into it, and some people get out of it for a little bit. For me, I've literally had to leave everybody in the past. My only friends pretty much are the people that I train martial arts with. Mom used to say, you are who your friends are. Well, for me, that's a bunch of killers on the mat that are savage martial artists, that are world champions, that are former Olympians. And that's where I spend all my time. And that's what's changed my life. I had to leave everybody, everything in the past, start something new, and figure it out from there. Just had to completely do it. See the people, I'm respectful, I'm very nice to them, but I'm not going to hang out with them. I'm not going to put myself at risk, because if it's in front of me and I'm having a bad day, I don't know what I'm going to do. As an addict, you want to hear people say, I'll never do it ever again. That's the people you have to worry about. That's the people you have to worry about them going back to it full on just one day. The people who tell you, I'm off it now, I've been off it for a while, but I just got to stay away from it because I'm scared to death. If it's in front of me, it could be just one line, one pill, one hit, one anything, and I'm full back in it. Back using, back selling, back doing whatever you're doing. And the people that are nervous about it, those are usually the ones that have a better grip on it. And I'm nervous about it. That's why I stay away from everybody. If I wanted to get high today, I don't know where I'd start. I literally don't talk to not a one of them. I wouldn't know who to call, what to do, it would take all day for me to try to find it. That's how I like it. I like for it to be so hard that if I wanted to do it, I wouldn't know who to call. I wouldn't know who to get from. I wouldn't know who to trust to try to get it from. And even if I did, probably wouldn't get what I thought I was going to get. And it's something bad happened there. You know, anyone could be the last one. You know, I look at these people as people trying to kill me. Because somebody tries to give me a drug, they are trying to kill me. I'm an addict. You know, I can't do one. I can do 2,000 and still not be happy. And then, you know, can't go back to that. You know, that's not how it's going to be. You know, today I'm a power lifter. I'm a martial artist. I'm living my best life that I can live, you know, happy and free out of prison. Now, I had a lot worse punishment than a lot of these people have. A lot of people that I know from the past are still out here doing the same thing. You know why? Out here telling on everybody. Every time they get caught, they're telling somebody new. And the police are really just helping them kill themselves. If they put them in prison for a few years, yeah, it's still in prison, but you can't use the same amount every day, and it's not possible. You know, it costs a lot more. It's a lot harder to come up with funds to get everything else for the people that did it in there. I didn't do heroin not one day in prison. You know, not one day. I done a lot of stuff. You know, in my life that led to me getting put in prison. That it ended up being the fun just wasn't there anymore. The fun and then the bad stuff that was happening, the bad stuff was through the roof. The fun was way down at the floor. I mean, it wasn't there anymore. You know, just a lot of disappointment, heartbreak, letting people down. And that's not who I am today. You know, the people who know me today, I'm sorry, I help a lot of people out. I like helping families out with people that have got addicted family members. You know, I like talking to people, giving them a rundown about what worked for me. Now, I believe I can help a lot of people through that. You know, I've got a different way about it. You know, I train martial arts obsessively. The past couple weeks, I've had a shoulder injury. And doing this channel's kind of been what's helped me during that time, because if I wasn't doing this, I'd be sitting here depressed. It'd be something awful. But I've had this shoulder injury, and I'm still trying. I trained last night. I still trained a few times. I still train more than the average person weekly right now with this injured shoulder, but I'm not able to train twice a day and every day of the week like I was. It's slowed me down a bit, but doing this, talking to y'all, has helped me. And you know, we're building this channel. It's hitting but 2 weeks old, and I mean, shoot, we're building it up. It's going to get big. It's going to help some people. You know, I hope it does. I hope you know, just maybe something I said just now. Some kid watches it and they decide, man, no, I don't want to die. Die the first time I use that. You're crazy, you know. Or somebody hears it and they realize just something clicks. Sometimes something clicks with something. It took me being in jail. I thought about how I was going to get high every day when I was in jail for the first 4, 5, 6 months, how my tolerance would be down, how it'd be so great. And then I started thinking, man, I'm stuck in here. Then I found I had a federal charge. And I was like, man, God, man, maybe this isn't the way to do it. And then through a conversation, I built myself up from a rack of bones to a little bit of muscle on me. I talked to this guy in there, Red. Red is about 260 pounds. Traps up to his ears, and he saw me lifting. He told me quit lifting with the clowns I was lifting with, lift with him, and he's the strongest, biggest dude in there. Now, he gave me a lot of good advice on what deals people. He's doing a 17-year sentence for his third cocaine distribution. Every day he'd tell me, get up there. He'd say, go put on the fights. I'd get up, turn fights on the TV. We'd watch UFC. He'd see how much I liked that. How much I liked it, and he taught me about it. He's like, you should go out there and try it when you get out. I'm like, nah, man, it's too late to get started. He's like, you don't have to become a professional. I'm talking about training. He says, good people you be around, you be doing something positive. And he said something stuck me. He said, don't be like me. He says, man, I'm in my 40s, got 17 years, so I'll be almost 60 when I get out of here. He said, go do that. He said, don't end up like me, man. Go do something. You love this stuff. He said, we watch it every day. He says, I love it. He says, I wish I could get out there. He said, I could train. I'm like, yeah, you kill somebody. You kill somebody. You got a little bit more knowledge, big as you are. Wreck people anyway. I've seen him do it. Um, and he's like, no, I'm serious. And he had that talk with me, and it stuck with me. And guess what? I'm a judo brown belt under a former Olympian. I'm a jiu-jitsu blue belt under a world champion. And I'm a crappy boxer that gets beat up by pros when I go boxing with former world champion, you know. I still bear anybody coming there untrained, anybody from my past I'd smash, and person from my past wouldn't make easy work out of. You know, I do this every day. You know what I mean? Even if not trying, you know, but anyway, that's a good part of it too for an addict get into training. You know, you ain't got to worry anymore. You know, after 5 years of this, training twice a day, what's somebody going to do against me? A power lift, train every day. I don't have to be scared. Don't have to be worried. What are they going to do? And second off, I'm not around those people to have to worry about that. I'm in the right places. That's something I started training to get away from all that, to get away from. I started training to protect myself, actually. I started training to know how to defend myself. Since I'm around good people, I don't need to do that. You know, they've got my back. I called them, they got my back. Got multiple classrooms full of killers that are one phone call away, got my back. Before, all the people claim they got my back. They didn't write me a single letter when I was in prison. All the people that are your friends, you got one thing in common for the most part if you're an addict and you think you got these friends that are solid, that are there for you. You guys get high together. You like getting high. You help each other get high. You know, that's what you got in common. You're not really friends. So I know, divert a little bit from the fentanyl topic. But hopefully something clicked for somebody.